Now, it may surprise you to hear, but I didn't really think of home that much, you know, not in all those years I was away. Mum would pop into my head sometimes. It was her voice I'd hear if I was giving myself a pep talk, but that was about all. Till Joseph was born. Then I started to feel this need to go back, you know. So I went to see my boss, who was also my father-in-law.
Now then, Jacob comes to me early one morning. He says, give me my wives, give me my kids, let me be on my way. No, there ain't no way we're going to let that happen. 1, he were a hard worker. 2, he were a cheap worker. 3, my wealth had increased massively since he'd arrived, because 4, I'd found out through certain arts, shall we say, that the Lord were blessing me through him. You know nothing if you think I were going to let that go.
For a minute, I thought I saw panic in his eyes, but then he was back to his normal self. He'd used Leah to get 7 years out of me, and then Rachel to get 7 more. Now, he says again,
name your wages, I says. What shall I give you?
By which he meant, what are you going to work more years to get? Unbelievable. I mean, this guy. But I suddenly saw an opportunity.
I were right surprised when he said he'd go on tending me animals if he could go through them and separate out any that was speckled or spotty or stripy, and any black sheep, and they'd become his own flock. Of course I agreed to that. Now, I'll let thee into a little secret. There weren't many of them animals to begin with, but them that there were, I separated them out from the rest of the flock, and I shipped them off with my sons further afield. Oh, be a long time before he had out approaching a flock, I can tell you. Or so I thought.
Now, I'll let you into a little secret. Once, during a breeding season, the animals that is, not mine, I had a dream where God showed me that all the animals that were breeding were either spotty or stripy or speckled. Now, I didn't have a clue what it meant at the time, but suddenly, boom, it all made sense.
Happened something were going on. After that first year, he had so many strangely patterned animals, I couldn't believe it. I knew something were up, just couldn't fathom what it were. But I had to act. So, I changed the terms of our deal. From now on, he could only have the stripy ones.
Yeah, he changed our bargain every few months. It was like, you can only have the stripy ones, you can only have the speckled ones. But sure enough, God was always one step ahead. I kept hoping he'd say you can only have the pink ones, because like, what a sight that would have been.
He was somehow cheating me at every turn. While my fortunes dwindled, his kept on growing. After 6 years of this, he had flocks galore. Not to mention servants, camels, donkeys. Oh, I was so angry.
Now, it's fair to say the atmosphere changed somewhat. Laban and his boys, they started giving me evils. And I know that look. That's how Esau used to look at me just before I found out he was planning on killing me.
Jacob sent for me and Leah to go see him in the field. And when we got there, he started telling us all about how my father Laban and me brothers had like this lousy attitude towards him. How hard he'd worked for Daddy. But Daddy had been cheating him out of this deal they'd made. Then he started telling us all about a dream that he'd had.
Yeah, I knew it was God in my dream, but he told me anyway. He reminded me about Bethel and the rock pillar, you know, and about the vow I'd made. He basically told me to get up and go home. Like home. Where Esau was.
For once, me and my sister agreed on something. We were all going to go with him. Everyone back home were treating us like foreigners now anyway. Even Daddy. And if Jacob's God had done everything he said he had, who were we to argue?
So, when Laban and his boys were off shearing their sheep, I got the kids and the missuses on camels. We herded the animals ahead of us and off we went. I know I should have said goodbye, but it just seems safer this way.
I'll let you into a little secret. Before we left, I snuck in to Daddy's house and I took his household gods. I knew it'd make him even angrier, but it'd be ages till we'd see him again. Or so I thought.
So, I were up to me neck in wool when word reaches me. Jacob has gone. Up and left with me grandkids. I were fuming, I were. I'll find out where they've gone, I decides, only to find my little gods have gone too. I were proper vexed, I were. Gathered me up a posse and headed for Rebecca's.
After about 8 or 9 days, we could see in the distance they were coming after us. And given that they weren't driving flocks of animals, or flocks of kids, they were gaining. Laban behind me, Esau ahead of me. If I didn't feel alone before, I did now.
The night before we finally caught up with them, I were visited by the God of Jacob's father in a dream. He basically says to me not to say out bad to Jacob, nor out good. It's no fun being told to shut it by God, I can tell you.
Come the next morning, Daddy were there. He were proper vexed. I stayed in my tent. I felt a bit guilty, if I'm honest.
What have you done? I says. Sneaking off like that with me family? You've deceived me.
See any common themes in this story?
You should have told me you were going. We could have sent you off with party, singing and dancing and the like. You've done foolish thing, lad. I've got the power to hurt you. But last night, your God warned me off.
Well, that's a result, I thought. But then he starts going on about why did I steal his gods? Honestly, accusing me of stealing. As if. Why would I want his silly little gods when mine's clearly much better? I said to him, if you find anyone here who's got your gods, you can kill them.
I were none too happy when Jacob said that. He'd be sleeping in Leah's tent for a while, I can tell you after that. I had to think right quick when Daddy started searching the rest of the camp. In the end, I sat on the camel bag that the gods were in and I told Daddy, "Don't be angry, my lord, that I cannot stand up in your presence. I'm having my monthly, you know, my special lady time." He didn't hang about long after that.
I kind of lost it when he came back empty-handed. I mean, this was years of frustration coming out at him for how he'd treated me, for how he'd cheated me. If it wasn't for God, I'd have probably ended up with nothing from that time. God proper had my back, just like he said he would. But now I'm having to deal with false accusations as well. I wasn't having it, and I told him so.
Yeah, he were a bit annoyed, to be fair. With the words of his God still ringing in my ears, I decided enough were enough. I offered him my hand and a covenant. Neither of us would pass this place to do other one harm.
So I put up a rock pillar, and Laban and his boys get together a heap of stones, like as a witness, like, and he calls it Mizpah.
I said, "May the Lord keep watch between you and me while we're away from each other." And then we ate together. We spent the night there. And following morning, I kissed me daughters goodbye. Kissed me grandkids goodbye. And we set off for home. I were a bit sorry to see him go, to be honest with you. But at least we're on good terms now, eh?
When Laban was gone, we packed up our stuff and we headed on our way as well. I think Rach wanted to stay for longer. She was in a proper huff with me about something. So I rode on ahead, you know, get some peace and quiet. It wasn't long before I started to feel really sick. Like sick with dread, you know. We were nearing home and I had no idea what we were heading into. Suddenly, the angels of God met me. And I was like, wow, this must be the camp of God. So I called the place Mahanaim, which means 2 camps. I thought, 2 camps? That's a good idea. Anyway, I decided to send a messenger ahead of us to Esau. See what's what, you know?
I've never seen anyone look so pale as my husband did when his envoy returned and said Esau were riding out to meet him. Esau and 400 men? Suddenly, I wished I'd gone with Daddy. Jacob decided to split the camp into 2 groups. Safer that way, and if Esau attacked one, the other could get away. It was starting to get really scary.
It all felt a bit hopeless. I mean, everything I'd been through just to get to this point here. I mean, as I look back now, I realise how much I'd changed because every part of me just wanted to grab my family and scarp her. But I knew the best thing I could do would be to pray. I mean, everything I had was because of God. He'd always been true to his word to me, so surely there was no way he was going to let me perish now. Right?